Everybody, we're coming to you from Kimberley in the Northern Cape. That is where the National Science Week for 2019 will be launched by the Minister of Higher Education, Science and Innovation, Dr Sabata Mokae, whom just had a conversation a short while back. But let's focus our attention now on literacy. I'm joined by Mr Sabata Mokae. He's a lecturer in creative writing in African languages at the Sol Plaatje University, and he's a writer and an author in his own right, having written and established a Setswana novel, Modisa. He won a literary award for Best Novel in Setswana and also received the Film Award. It has also been subsequently prescribed as required study material at some of the South African universities, and he joins me now. Very good morning to Mr Mokae. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
Good morning, sir. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Now, tell us about the importance of African languages and writing them in our own indigenous languages.
Well, first of all, there is no language that is useless. Each language is a body of knowledge, or is a way of knowing, is a philosophy. It's not just a means to communicate. So I think right now, South Africa we are rebuilding a nation that was polarized, that was broken down, that was traumatized. And part of doing that includes making sure that people are also culturally free. And being culturally free is steeped in languages that people speak. So each language needs to be written down in order to grow, in order to develop. So I think we need to write down our languages to make sure that they grow.
Now, just looking back at apartheid and colonialism, you just spoken of rebuilding a nation which has been previously polarized. How has that influenced indigenous people in South Africa?
Well, firstly, for a long time, African languages were not official languages in the country, which means that there were not so much resources invested in the development and growth of African languages. And that can only have negative effects. It means that people would not be proud of these languages. These languages cannot be used as languages of business, of education, of government, and so on. So the past, apartheid, colonialism, impacted negatively on these languages, marginalized these languages. In fact, we already have languages that are dying out right now.
And Sol Plaatje is the only institution in the country that offers creative writing in Setswana. How do you see this? How do you use this in impacting on the love and embracing of creative languages in our own indigenous languages?
Well, first of all, we need to usher in a new generation of African writers. And it cannot be right that default languages for African storytelling are European languages, mainly English and French, as though African people do not have languages of their own. Now, what we need to do, and what we are attempting to do with creative writing in African languages at our university, is to help midwife this new generation of African writers who are able to express themselves in African languages and be able to travel the world, find their space in the world using mother tongue, and also trying to mainstream literary translations, because in South Africa, translation happens between English and Afrikaans mostly, but hardly between isiZulu and Sesotho, Xitsonga and Setswana, and so on. And hopefully with this program, we're going to be able to mainstream literary translation. One should be able to write in Setswana, knowing very well that this book will be available in English next time, and not go through the pain of writing something as long as a novel in a language that's not yours, that you do not speak. So, which means that before you even write down your story, you negotiate with a foreign language as a middleman. So the expression there is really not free. The moment you have this middleman who is English before you tell your story.
And I would imagine the pain of negotiating with a middleman who doesn't speak your own language, and that can be quite a daunting task. And now going back to the point that you made about some of the languages that are dying, which are some of these languages that are dying, and how do we resuscitate them?
I think the first thing is to acknowledge that some languages are dying out because of the increased use of English, increased use of of languages other than African languages. That is the first thing. But the second one is to make sure that we write them down. So there are languages where you do not even have children's literature, and that's where we need to begin. We need to begin by making sure that there is children's literature available in Nama language, for instance, which is a language that's spoken by very, very few people in South Africa. And then you come to other languages that are used less now than before. So I think the biggest thing is to make sure that they are written down, firstly, and secondly, to normalize it. Make sure that people do not equate speaking European languages with sophistication. They do not equate it with wisdom. And they start seeing their own languages as ways of knowing, as philosophies, because each language is a cultural framework, is the eyes through which you see the world and explain and interpret things.
And the most unfortunate thing is that using a foreign language is a measure of your intelligence. That is so wrong, and it is totally misguided. And having said that, Mr. Mokae, we've seen a slow increase of publishing and writing books in our own languages. So why is this the case? And you've been in this industry for quite a while now. And what do you think needs to be done in order to counter that?
I think publishers need to understand that there are millions of people who speak these languages. Setswana, for instance, the language in which I write, is spoken in 5 Southern African countries by millions of people. isiZulu by 20 million people or so. And publishing, because publishers are business people, they are the impact, or for them the return is rands and cents. I think the moment they start publishing in languages that people speak, people start appreciating this, people start accessing this, people start buying their books, and those rands and cents will come to them. But I think we need government investment as well, because I think publishers, they go for the tried and tested languages for them is English and Afrikaans right now, and they would be tiptoeing around African languages. They would be reluctant to publish in African languages unless this is the work that is prescribed for schools. And so I think there must be some subsidies or publishing grants mainly for African language literature.
And after all, how do you exert your own influence and your authority if you don't write in your own language? Mr. Mokae, thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir.
All right, that was Mr. Mokae. He's a creative writer and a lecturer of creative writing at the Sol Plaatje University here in the Northern Cape. We'll take a short break now. We'll be right back.